Hey coaches, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week I've been talking about a 30, 60, 90-day plan of action, really that you, in my opinion, you should have every year, but you really need to have if you're taking a new job. And I've been tested on this because I've just taken a new job. So these are some of the things that I'm doing in my new job to try to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible. If you have more questions, you can reach out to me at fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com or my Twitter handle, which is the same. If you would like this 30, 60, 90-day plan, or there's a lot of other materials on there also, you can just go to fbcoachsimpson.com, go to the materials section, and all of this stuff is downloadable. So inside of the 30, 60, 90-day plan, you deal with the three probably most important groups right off the bat: administration, players, and coaches. And we'll talk about dealing with parents on Friday, which is part of the community. But today we're going to talk about probably the hardest job most head coaches have, and that's communication. How are you going to communicate to your parents? How are you going to communicate to your administration? How are you going to communicate to the teachers in the buildings you're going into? How are you going to communicate ultimately to your players or potential players also? So all of those people, you've got to find a system to communicate. And with COVID going on right now, it's even more difficult, because generally I would just have a giant parent meeting and go through a lot of different ways that we're going to do this. With COVID right now, we're not able to do that. And so we're having to use many alternate methods of communicating with players. And so let me go through a few of those. First thing, Google Classrooms has a lot of materials, or a lot of different ways you can communicate. That seems to be a way a lot of school districts are going to. It's usually much more efficient, I have found, in dealing with getting out like forms or letters that maybe need to go out, or schedules that they can print off. Been a really good, easy way to do it, just using a Google Classroom. And you can put video on there as well. I don't know how much of that's getting watched by your kids, but a lot of times if we've got a form or something we need them to take home and get signed, or a schedule, then Google Classroom seems to be a way to go. You can also do social media. You gotta be careful with social media, obviously, because of social media. So you gotta be careful who you delegate to be in charge of that. We have a Twitter account at Cersei. One of my younger coaches runs that, so he'll put announcements or just pictures or different things to kind of talk about our program on Twitter. We will be starting a Facebook group, and we're blessed at Cersei actually to have a really great HR lady who's also able to put things out on the school's account that gets seen by more people that are not just involved with the football program. But there are multiple other methods you can go about, and we're in the process of trying to figure out how to do that. But communicating with your players is very, very important. Also, the image you're putting out towards the community is very important. And a lot of coaches are doing some really good things, but they're not communicating that very well. And with all the ways you can do that, that should never happen. If you're a head coach, you should be able to communicate quickly with all of your players, with boosters, with anybody you've got. The best way to do that is face-to-face. That's not always the way you can do that. So use the different forms of social media out there, but you've got to communicate to everybody. The second thing I want to talk about in communication, though, is how are you communicating? Because you want to make sure that you're communicating the message you want to come out. First time on a job, you want to make sure that this is your first impression, just like it's their first impression of you, that you are representing yourself well. So I would highly recommend making sure you've got different things you want to hit on certain days that you're going to talk about. What I've learned a lot of times is if we don't write it down, we tend to ramble, okay, or we tend to not hit something that was important. So for us at practice, usually I'm going to handle announcements at the beginning and announcements at the end for the kids. This is a face-to-face kind of deal. At the end, I'm also going to try to tie in some of the things that I think are most important. For instance, for us at Cersei next year, our theme is going to be Find a Way. And so we've been talking about that at the end of practices. We've been talking about how effort on the field is simply a reflection of what's happening off of the field. But each day I've tried to make sure I just hit a little bit, because I've learned that in about 3 or 4 minutes, nobody's listening at that point. And so Try to keep your message short, concise, to things that are most important to you. Just like you would put in an offense or put in a defense, a lot of times when you're communicating to players, you want to make sure the most important thing is hit the most. If you don't get down here to number 8 or 9 or 10, that's okay. Make sure your kids understand, hey, we're going to prioritize the following. For us, we're going to prioritize maximum effort. We're going to prioritize being coachable. We're going to prioritize sacrifice for your teammates. If we hit those things and we don't get down to all the other things I want to get to, that's fine. But I want to make sure those are the things I'm talking about first and not just laying out a ton of information. You also want to figure out how your kids learn best. Do they learn through verbal, by hearing? Do they learn through talking, making them get up and talk in front of the team? Do they learn by visual, showing them a video or showing them an example? Do they learn by you handing them some list? You know, some kids learn that way. So figure out how your kids learn and how you can communicate with them best. Do they handle direct, or do they need to be petted a little bit and encouraged a little bit? So figure out how your kids want to be communicated with. So not only do you figure out how you're going to do it as far as how you're going to get your word out, you also need to figure out what kind of message you're sending, and then how are you going to send that message? And that all needs to be done inside of this 30, 60, 90-day plan. And with COVID going on, it's made it a little bit more difficult. So it's just something you need to think about as you're taking a job. Again, if you want more information, I've got it on fbcoachsimpson.com, or you can email me if you've got questions, fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. Again, if you don't mind, if you like this video, or if you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.